So here's the thing. You want to win Coup, but you don't know how. Well, luckily for you, I've played way too much Coup. Way too much Coup. For the past 2 years, okay, too much Coup. And probably I'm going to stop playing as much Coup, so there's no reason to not just tell away all my secrets. Because I couldn't find any good videos on how to win Coup. I had to figure it out myself. So now you got this video, because all the other videos, let's be honest, okay, they're kind of bad. It's like, oh, they say things. They spend 500 minutes telling you about the rules, and then they're like, oh, you could lie and get away with. No, come on, man. Nobody cares. We want to know how to win Coup. So here I got the 5 Coup cards, and I'm going to explain to you how to win Coup. The main thing are the end games. So there, well, probably like 5-6 types of end games, and your goal is to get into a good end game. So I'm going to explain all the types of end games, explain how you get there, and what side of that end game you want to be on, because every end game has 2 sides. So first one, you got the assassin end game. Now the assassin end game is where, okay, let's start with this. 2 players left, and each have 1 card. If there are 2 players left and they have 2 cards, you could technically call that an end game. But that gets, because at its core, right, you either have an assassin, you have a duke. That's not a duke, that was a captain. You got a duke or you got a captain. And at the end of the day, these are the cards that matter in an endgame. These are the ones that define an endgame. Whether you have 2 cards or 1 card, it doesn't really matter. It relies on these. Mostly the captain, to be fair, but we're going to start with the assassin. So in an assassin endgame, your goal as the assassin player is to get 3 coins before your opponent can get 7 coins, because usually there's only 1 assassin. If there are 2 assassins, it becomes a coin rush, and that's a whole different type of endgame. So assuming only 1 player has an assassin, it becomes a game of who can get to 3 coins first. Now, if you're in an assassin endgame with the assassin, you're winning. But if the other player got a contessa, then you're losing, right? Because then you think you got that upper hand, but really your opponent does. I'm going to put this down and hopefully you can still hear me, because I can't really use one hand to do everything. So you got these 2. Yes, the camera can see it now. So it's either an assassin endgame without a contessa, or it's with a contessa. If it's with a contessa, you want to be on that side. If all the contessas are dead, you want to be on this side. So the way to do that is throughout the game, you'll be noticing what players are killing, right? And over time, it either ends up in 1 or 2 positions. Either everybody's killing their contessas, or everybody's killing their assassins. If everybody's killing their assassins, then it's not going to be an assassin endgame, and the contessa is absolutely useless. However, if you notice everybody's killing their contessas, or they're just not killing the assassins, right? At that point, you need to make sure that in the end game, you either have an assassin, or you have a contessa. I'm going to put it up here. You need to remember to show it to the camera. So you either have an assassin or you have a contessa. If there's an assassin left at the end of the game, okay? If you do not have either of these at the end, and everybody's not been killing their assassins, meaning there are assassins in the game, you're going to end up on the bad side of this endgame, and you're going to lose because you don't have enough coins to outgun an assassin. Assassin can kill with 3 coins. I'm not going to explain the rules of Coup. If you don't know the rules of Coup, then why are you watching this video? So that's one type of endgame. Okay, so you either want to be the one with the assassin or the one with the contessa. Now let's say the game's going on and everybody's killing off their contessas and assassins, and at that point the captain is the most OP endgame card. In fact, in a lot of endgames, even a lot of assassin endgames, as long as your opponent doesn't get 3 coins, it's fine. And what you can do with the captain. So in any endgame where you notice that captains are staying alive, so nobody's killing off their captains, you need a captain at the end of the game. Because if you don't, then your opponent does, and then they're going to steal from you, steal from you, steal from you, until you die. Because you can't defend yourself if you don't have a captain. Technically, you're okay with an ambassador because that can block stealing. However, usually, like, you want a captain because then you can also do the stealing, right? Because there's no point getting to the end game and just heading into a coin rush because you both have, because you're just there with the captain. Like, no, you can't steal, ambassador. No, you can't steal from me. And your opponent's there with a captain. However, it's like, it's not that bad, but you want this because then you also have the option of stealing. With this, it can work. It just turns into a coin rush endgame again, where they can't steal from you. But usually you do get an advantage, but the same thing happens with the captain. It's getting a bit gambly. What I'm saying is, either of these are good, but the captain just gives you an extra option of stealing, so that if you do get lucky and your opponent doesn't have an ambassador captain, you just win by stealing, right? Otherwise, if you both have something like a block stealing, it turns into a coin rush endgame where usually the person who gets stolen from first wins because the other person's wasting a turn. And now finally, I'm going to get to the coin rush endgame, and for that, again, the Duke is the best, but you really want, if it's a game where there's a captain in play, you need a captain to be alive. But for coin rush, like just pure, let's say all the captains are dead, all the assassins are dead, you need a Duke. If you do notice that all the captains and assassins are dead as you're getting to the end game, and you know that in the court deck there are like the remaining of these, because they're not all going to die. But if these cards are not in play, and you know that for sure, you need a Duke in the end game, because that's how you win the coin rush. Right? That basically a coin rush is just where you can't do anything. It's like whoever gets 7 coins first wins. So the way, again, to get into the winning position of endgames is paying attention to the game and paying attention to what dies. So all of these endgames rely on you being on the winning side, because there are two sides to these endgames. There's the winning side and the losing side. The winning side is the one who has the relevant card, because in an endgame, right, if you bluff and your opponent's going to lose because of that bluff, they have no reason not to call you out. Now you can get away, you can get away with that if you're playing with people who don't know what they're doing. Which is why I have an almost 100% win rate against people who don't know what they're doing, because you can just lie in any situation until they realize that you know what they're doing, what you're doing, and then they just target you. But until that happens, against new players, you can just get a 100% win rate. Okay? It's possible. I mean, more like 90%, but then they start noticing and then it goes down. So it won't be 100% for too long, but it's going to be 100% while they don't realize how good you are. So you need to pay attention to these cards. Are these cards dying or are they not? Again, it doesn't matter about, to be honest, look, it doesn't matter as much if these cards die. The only reason you should pay attention to if all the Dukes are dead is because then you can take 4 and 8 instead of income. But really, at that point, everybody's doing it. It's just because it's just a way to speed up the game. It's a good mechanic, but it doesn't matter that much. You need to pay attention to these because it'll depend what endgame you end up in. So now, we've gone over the 2-player endgames. What about the 3-player endgames? I'd say a 3-player endgame is when between the 3 of you there are 4 cards. Okay, if it's 3-player and they all have 2 cards, I wouldn't call that endgame. I'd call that like late mid game or something. But an endgame 3-player, they're really 2 types. There's either a David's v Goliath, or there's a Mexican standoff. We're going to start with the first one. So if it's a David's v Goliath, it means one player got 2 cards, and the other 2 players are each dealing with 1 card each. Okay, you kind of screwed if you're in that position as one of the Davids, but you're not 100% screwed. The reason I say you're screwed is because most people, you are at this point, if you end up in this situation, you are relying on the other Davids to play along with you, right? If they're just not willing to work with you, and they still got the old mentality of mid-game Coup where it's all for themselves, then yeah, you're screwed. But let's say you're able to convince the other David to work with you. What do you want to do? You want to both be taking 4 and 8 every turn, unless the 2-player got a Duke, in which case you can't do that. If the other player got a Duke, and it's a 2-player endgame, you're kind of screwed. Because then, unless somebody's really close, you're dead. But you're even more dead if they got a captain. Okay, so basically, if they have one of these 2 cards, and you're in a David's v Goliath, you should have played better in the game, because that's not gonna... You're not gonna... Assuming the other player knows what they're doing, the Goliath knows what they're doing, you're not going to win if they have any of these 2 cards. But assuming they don't, then you have a chance. Because if both of you take 4 and 8 and just gradually work up, even if they have a captain stealing, they can only steal from 1 person at a time, right? So then eventually somebody's going to build up. Also, if you got a captain yourself, now personally when I play it, usually I say you can't box stealing for other players. But sometimes groups say yes, you can box stealing for other players. If you're in one of those games, then you gotta use this to block stealing from the other, like, David player. But if you are not playing in that, then you can't do that, obviously. But maybe you shouldn't reveal this. See, here's the tricky thing. If you're in a David v Goliath, and you have a captain, and they're stealing from you, you don't necessarily want to block stealing. Because what can happen is if you work together with the other David and then you build up enough coins, one of you is going to die, right? Because you can't stop the Goliath player from eventually getting 7 coins without sacrificing yourself completely by maybe constantly stealing from them or something. But then you end up with the other player, the other David, suddenly becoming the Goliath that they have too many coins, and then it becomes a Mexican standoff. And you don't want that to happen. So if you do have a captain, don't reveal it, because you might be thinking this is stupid, okay? I'm just going to lose all my coins and then I might die. Well, guess what? If you reveal that you're the one with the captain, okay, they're going to kill you first. Even if you steal from them successfully, you get 7 coins. The other player is also building up coins, and then they're going to have 7 coins. And at that point, you're basically saying, okay, I kill the Goliath, and then I make the other person win. You don't care who wins. You just want yourself to win. So whether you win or lose, if you don't show that you're the one with the captain, then the Goliath might get cocky and kill the other person, and then you can kill the Goliath and then start stealing from them yourself. So ultimately, you need to keep that in mind. You are still playing for yourself, but to beat the 2-player, you need to both work together. Final thing, this one can also turn into a Mexican standoff if you play it right. See, that's the thing. If you play this endgame, you don't want to end up in this endgame, because even if you play everything right, you will probably end up in a Mexican standoff endgame, where whoever coups first loses. So in this scenario, all of you have 7 or more coins, and it's just, or even less than that, it's just 1 card each. Usually if you all have 1 card each, and you're all on equalish coins, this is when it happens. None of you can kill without the other player killing you and then winning the game. So whoever shoots first loses, and whoever gets shot loses. So in that scenario, you want to basically be the one who doesn't get shot, and you don't want to shoot first. Now this is where stalling comes in. This is an advanced technique which can lead to stalemates if everybody knows what they're doing, but can also lead you to win if nobody else sees what's happening. Now in my group, because we got to a game where basically everybody was using these stalling techniques, and we realized it wasn't going anywhere. So that was the first Coup ceasefire I've ever been a part of, and it was very funny. But then after that, I had to adapt my strategy, because if it kept happening, then that'll become a problem to win, right? You want to either win or lose, okay? There's no point playing for a draw. So then metas evolved, and we went away from that. But usually, I mean, at least in our group, this became a meta for a while, where you need to stall out the clock. If you don't want to get to 10 coins first, because then after 10 coins you have to kill, right? So these are the 2 cards which are good for that. This one is so much better for that than the captain. But the I'll tell you how you can use the captain to stall. You can also technically use the assassin to stall, but that costs money, and you don't technically want to lose coins, because if you drop below the 7 coin threshold, then weird things might happen. But I will just explain how to stall with all 3 of these. If you have the Duke, just don't take your Duke tax and take 1 coin. If you got the Contessa, then, well, you can't really do much, can you? But it might be worth bluffing that you have the Ambassador, because usually in these Mexican standoff endgames, it's also the case there. People are deep in the end of the game, so they don't want to just lose off a silly contest. So if they're not 100% sure, they might let you get away with it. However, if the person after you knows what they're doing, they'll realize this, and they'll contest you either way. And then if they're correct, then they get to play next and then coup the other player. And if they're wrong, then, well, it would have been a 50-50 anyway. But usually if you can convince them that it's true, you can just bluff Ambassador and hopefully end up in a situation where you actually have an Ambassador. And usually by the end game, all the Ambassadors are in the court deck, so it shouldn't be that hard. Anyway, I'm going to go with weakest first. The weakest is the captain. Assuming everybody knows what they're doing. Again, actually, even if nobody knows what they're doing, the captain is even worse, to be honest, in that scenario. Because the whole thing, actually no, the captain's slightly better if people don't know what they're doing, but if people do know what they're doing, then it's terrible. So the whole thing about the captain is you can steal coins, right? But you don't want to get more than 10 coins. But technically, people can block you stealing. So if you steal from somebody you know has a captain, and then they go, no, you can't steal from me because I have a captain, or no, you can't steal from me because I have an ambassador. Then go, okay, that's fine. Oh, what a shame, I can't steal from you. and then you go a turn without making any forward progress. But you don't want to make forward progress in this scenario because who shoots first loses. Second is the assassin. With the assassin, it's kind of similar to the captain, but slightly worse because you're spending coins, and you don't want to be significantly below 7 coins either. I guess you could like build up to 9 coins, spend it, you end up on 6, but then often you can make it back. So it's not terrible, but it's very dependent on the game, because if somebody accepts your assassination, you're screwed, right? If they go, oh, so that's fine. But you're hoping you're going to assassinate somebody with a contessa, or even if they don't have a contessa and they have the balls to lie about it. You go, I'm assassinating you. Oh no, you have a contessa, what a shame. Oh, what a shame. And hopefully they don't call you out or you don't call them out, because they might call you out. This is why it's not the best one, because again, it can, if the other player isn't playing along, they can call you out, like, you don't have an assassin because I die either way. Or they just let you kill them because they don't care enough. Ambassador is the best one in this scenario because nobody can stop you. And this is how stalemates happen. So you need to go, I'm using my ambassador to exchange in the court deck. And then you check the court deck. Oh, very, very beautiful. What a shame. Oh, yeah, I'm totally switching card. You just keep the ambassador, right? So you can do it again next turn. If you manage to get away with bluffing the ambassador, because I said earlier in endgames you can't really bluff, think ambassador is the one exception where you can bluff that, and oftentimes you're not gonna win doing that, right? So players will let you do it. They're not gonna risk it. So if you do manage to bluff it, by the time it's endgame, usually ambassador in the court deck. So then you just go, oh, what are these cards? I found an ambassador, and you just keep the ambassador, and then after that, you're good. So that's a way to stall, not get more than 10 coins. If everybody stalls, it's a stalemate, and somebody's gonna have to snap, or you're gonna have to agree on a draw. Most of the time, you'll be playing with, and especially if you got to a good endgame, right? You don't want to end up in an endgame where all 3 players know what they're doing, which is a bit of, what's it called? Machiavellian. But you don't want to end up in an endgame where all 3 players know what they're doing. It's fine to end up with one person who knows what they're doing, because often they're the ones who will survive to the end, right? But you want to make sure, especially if you end up in a Mexican standoff, that one player is not fully aware of what they're doing, and they'll be the one to shoot. So they'll build themselves up to 10 coins, and then they'll be forced to shoot, which means if they don't shoot you, you win. And if they shoot you, well, you lose some. What else is there? General endgame. Don't call anyone out unless you have to, because by the time it's the endgame, a lot of the time people know what cards everyone has. But if you call somebody out, there's a chance you lose. Now, if you are in the losing part of the endgame, you might want to make the other person believe that you think they have a duke, and then they'll take the duke tax, and then you contest them. But if people know what they're doing, they'll realize that's a terrible strategy. Also, sometimes people will get desperate and use an assassin. Now, no matter if you believe they have an assassin or not, you have to call them out on it, unless you got the contessa. Then use the contessa. But assuming you don't have a contessa, you have to call them out on everything. Anything that would make you lose the game, that you call them out on that. Because worst case you lose, you're going to lose anyway. Best case, they were lying and then you win. So that's good. A lot of people are blundered this way. A lot of people make claims they don't have, and then they just die. It'll also happen the other way. So if you're in the winning position of the... Because you can calculate endgames, okay? By the time it gets to the endgame, where you basically know what the other player has, and it's just a 1v1, you can kind of calculate, okay, he takes 3 from his duke. I should show it this way, because I'm not actually playing the game. He takes 3 from his duke, and then I'll take 2, so he gets 1, I'm on 2, then he's on 4, but minus 2, 2. You can calculate who gets to 7 first, right? You just gotta... People will be complaining at you that you're being too slow, but eventually you'll be able to do this without being too slow. So, take your time, calculate the endgame. Are you the winning person in that endgame? If you're the winning person in that endgame, don't call them out unless they try to steal from you or do something which should cause you to lose the endgame. Now, there are some scenarios where you might, I've been in that as well, where you miscalculate what the other person has and then you end up losing. But oftentimes you don't, and they're just pulling something last second. I need to win, I got a captain all along, but no, they don't. They never have a captain all along. unless you play further, and then they do have a captain all along, and then you go what, and then you realize that you got screwed. But in most cases, especially if you're starting with a new group of people, they won't have had a captain all. Nobody ever has a captain all along. Okay, if they had a captain, they would have used it by now. So that's all there is to say. Don't be dumb in the end game. Though watch back through. I'll probably timestamp it, so you can skip back to all the sections if it wasn't too gambly. This might have been very gambly, but hopefully you got something from this. I might make more how to win at Coup, because Coup is not all about the end game, but the end game is the most important part. What else is there to say? I'm gambling. Goodbye. I hope you win Coup. And if you want more how to win, you know what? If you pay me £20, I will personally teach you how to win a Coup. Yeah, why not? If you pay me £20, I'll put an email, and if you want to pay £20, I will tell you exactly how to win Coup. All of my secrets from 2 years of playing Coup. What is it? 40% win rate when I'm tryharding, which should be around what's 6 divided by 6? Less than 20. Less than 20% is the expected win rate. I get 40 when I'm trying, and 30 just by force of habit when I'm not trying. So I know what I'm doing with Coup. I play too much Coup. I'm not playing much Coup anymore, so I'm just telling away all my secrets. £20, you get all my secrets. I'll put in the email. If you want to pay me to get good at Coup, then you can do that. But if you don't, then that's fine. I'll probably make another how to win a Coup and talk about something else. Goodbye. Win at Coup.